Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, Second City Sports. Today we're just going to do a quick video about who the Blackhawks should target in free agency and what their depth chart looks like going into the offseason. So let's get started here. So you can see here I went into Google Sheets and I made a quick spreadsheet. We'll start with all the expiring contracts and some of the AHL free agents as well. So Ryan Donato is a UFA, Philip Kurashev is an RFA, uh, Arvid Soderblom is an RFA, Kaiser RFA, Crevier is an RFA, and then obviously Patrick Maroon and Alec Martinez have retired. I put TJ buyout. TJ Brody is going to be bought out. He wasn't even traveling with the team at the end of the season, so I think that's pretty much set in stone. Moving on to the AHL free agents. This is Victor Soderstrom. We acquired him with the trade we made with the Utah. I almost called them the Coyotes. With the Utah Hockey Club, soon to be called the Mammoths, I think. Uh, yeah, he was playing in Sweden this year. I think he's going to come back and play in Rockford next season. We'll see, but he's technically an RFA. Andreas Athanasiou. This is technically an NHL contract, but he's played in Rockford pretty much all season. He's going to be a UFA. Zach Sanford is a UFA. Brett Seney is a UFA. Cole Gutman is a G6 UFA, which I don't fully understand it, but I think it's basically because he's playing in the American Hockey League and he's hit a certain age that he becomes a UFA. Um, but we'll get more into him later. Sorella is an RFA, Ratty RFA, and Loipin is also an RFA. To be honest, I'm not very familiar with a lot of these players on the Ice Hogs. I think Sorelli, I don't think even Sorelli's in Rockford. I think he's still overseas. I don't think they're going to sign him, but you never know. But going over the ones I do know, so Soderstrom, I think will probably sign with the Blackhawks, come over, play in Rockford, and you see what you have in him. Andreas Athanasiou, I think he will be a free agent, and I think he will probably struggle to find some work in this coming off season. He had a really bad year with the Blackhawks with the limited chances he had. He might look to play maybe even overseas next year. We'll see. Sanford, I know he made a very costly error in Rockford's last playoff game that they lost to the Milwaukee Admirals, but he also scored twice in that game, I believe. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring him back to play in the AHL next year. Brett Seney, I think he'll be back for the Ice Hogs. Gutman, I think he will be back as well, unless he finds a team willing to give him a chance at the NHL level. Sorelli, I don't think they sign him, to be honest. And then Ratty, I think will definitely be signed. Loipin, I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. But moving on to the NHL expired contracts. So Ryan Donato is a UFA heading into this offseason. Scored 30 goals for the Blackhawks, was pretty much the most surprising player on the team, I would say. Uh, I think they are going to put a considerable amount of effort into trying to make sure he signs probably before free agency opens. Um, yeah, I think it makes sense for both sides, and I expect him to be back in a Blackhawks uniform, probably somewhere in the range of like maybe $4.5 million a year per probably 3 or 4 years. I think that makes sense. Philip Kurashev, I don't think they re-signed him. He had a very disappointing season this year after his breakout campaign last year. Uh, Soderblom is an interesting one. Um, it kind of comes down to Brossoit here. If Brossoit is healthy, I don't think it makes sense to keep Soderblom because Comesso was so good in Rockford the last few months in the season and in the AHL playoffs. I think it just makes more sense to let him be a full-time starter rather than splitting starts between Comesso and Soderblom. But it depends whether or not Brossoit is going to be ready to go next season. Kaiser and Crevier, I'm just going to lump them together and say they're both going to get new contracts with the Hawks. Both showed flashes this previous season. I like both of them. Obviously, Pat Maroon, Alec Martinez, congrats on your great careers. Best of luck in retirement. And then TJ Brody, pretty much a definite buyout candidate. I don't expect them to keep him. If they do keep him, I would be rather surprised. So, moving on to the players we have under contract for next season and how they kind of line up. So, Knight, Brossoit, Camesso is the goalies. I think that just makes sense. The defense is a little hard to kind of put together, but Vlasic, Rinzel, I think that'll probably be our top line next year. I know Rinzel only played 9 games this season for the Hawks, but he was very impressive in those 9 games, and I kind of just expect this to be our probably our best D pair next season. Moving on to the second pair, I put Ethan Del Maestro with Connor Murphy. I think Murphy's pretty much a lock for our second right-handed D position at the moment, and I think Del Maestro is the best of the group of Allen and Korchinski and him. I think that would be a good second pairing. Allen and Levshinov, I'm not sure. I'm in the camp of I would rather Levshinov play in the AHL next season. I don't think he's ready for a full-time NHL role. I think he started pretty hot, and then he kind of started to dip as time went on during his stint in the NHL. And then I put Korchinski as the seventh. He is currently right now the seventh best defenseman we have under contract, but he's definitely not ready for a full-time NHL gig. He needs to be in Rockford next season for the whole season, most likely. So just put him down here. Moving on to the forward car. I wouldn't, by the way, just as a quick note, I wouldn't worry about the order I put all these players in. It's just kind of a general idea of what the lineup could look like next season. So I went for Mikheyev, Bedard, Nazar. This line was pretty effective towards the end of last season. I think they could maybe start next season together. Bertuzzi, Dickinson, Teravainen. I think second line center is a pretty big need. And I don't think they're going to get it in the draft. I think pretty much anybody the Hawks take is probably going to use a year or two to get ready at either junior, the NCAA, or the AHL, or overseas. I'm going to go over some candidates to maybe take this spot, but I went for Bertuzzi, Dickinson, Teravainen anyway. Third line, Doc, Reichel, Slaggert. I think this could be a fantastic line. Just a high energy, high speed kind of line. I would love to see it. I doubt it happens because the Blackhawks hate Reichel, and Doc isn't very far behind on the doghouse list sometimes. So, I can dream, and it's my video, so I'm going to do what I want. Foligno, Veleno. I went for Aiden Thompson. Again, I think this is a guy, he could be pushed out of the lineup. Some people would probably say, well, wouldn't Green or Moore kind of take this spot because they actually played in the NHL last season? I think it's more important to the Blackhawks that Oliver Moore and Ryan Green actually just develop. I don't think they really think the same of Aiden Thompson. I think he's kind of just like a body. They maybe see him as like a fourth line guy in the future, and that's kind of his ceiling. So I think they would probably, if they had to, they would just throw him into the lineup in this spot. And then these guys, I think this line probably AHL line, Lardis, Moore, Green. That would be a pretty exciting line to watch. Hayes, Music, Woodwinski. Those are some other players that I wanted to list here. So with that being said, let's take a look at some guys I think the Hawks should try and go after in free agency if they're available. Starting with some priority targets here, Mitch Marner and Nikolaj Ehlers. If either of these players is available, they should try and snap them up right away. Mitch Marner, I know the Maple Leafs just got knocked out yesterday. Happy Leafs elimination day, everybody. The regular season numbers are so good that you can't ignore, and I understand that he doesn't perform the same in the playoffs. But with how far away the Blackhawks are from the playoffs, like, why wouldn't you get this? He would be an amazing player to play alongside Connor Bedard. I think he makes perfect sense for them. Ehlers, same kind of story, honestly. You look at his stats, and he hasn't really produced in the playoffs either. Winnipeg and Toronto are like almost mirror images of each other, except for the fact that the Leafs are an extremely rich team and the Jets are pretty poor in terms of NHL money. But, again, not a playoff performer, but he's a good regular season player. I think he could do well with Connor Bedard. So yeah, these are guys that if you're signing them, they're playing with Connor pretty much the entire year. Moving on to some secondary targets, if those two aren't available, you can try your hand at a Brock Boeser type player. Again, solid player. Actually, not a bad playoff guy. Not great, but not terrible. Jonathan Drouin, he would be more of a shorter term option. Um, Up and down career, but he had a pretty decent season with limited time this year. Did okay in their playoff series. Could be maybe an interesting target for the Blackhawks. Moving on, second line centers. This is a pretty key target for the Blackhawks to try and get in free agency. Uh, so starting off, we have Matt Duchene, 34 years old, which isn't great, but over 1,000 games played in his career. He's experienced. He's done well pretty much everywhere he's been for the most part. Played fantastic this season, 82 points, 82 games. Uh, kind of not as great in the playoffs, but still, like I said, the Hawks just need to actually try and make the playoffs or get closer to the playoffs. I'm not worried about, winning the Stanley Cup this year. That's a pipe dream. Another guy, Sam Bennett. I think Sam Bennett would be a great fit with the Blackhawks. Physical player, uh, winner. Um, Overall, he can do a bit of everything. I think he would be a great fit for this young team. Another name I wanted to mention, Jack Roslovic. I would definitely try and get Jack Roslovic. I think he's like one of the more likely players that the Hawks would be able to sign because they could overpay him a little bit. Uh, I think he's a great forechecker. I just really like him. Still only 28, so relatively young for a UFA, and I think he would be a good fit. Plus, with Roslovic, I think he's a guy that once some of the younger players, like say Oliver Moore, are ready to play in the NHL, you could kind of slide him down on the lineup, and he could still be effective in a role for you. And then the last position I wanted to talk about is a right-handed defenseman. So, like I said at the start of this video, I don't think Lev Shinov is ready for a full-time NHL spot yet. So I would like them to try and maybe sign a player to create some more competition on the blue line. And I think Dante Fabro would be a great signing. He's a little bit injury prone, but when he is healthy, he is a fantastic player. I'm a big fan of his game. I think he would be terrific for the Hawks blue line. I think the way it could work is Connor Murphy's contract is up after this next season. So you could move Murphy at the deadline, put Fabro as the second pair right-handed defenseman, and then call Levshinov up to be the bottom pair defenseman to finish the season. Or you can, some variation of that. I think that could work out great. Another option is Cody Ceci. To be honest, this free agency class for defenders isn't great. Ceci's probably the second best right-handed D available. Not a great player, but solid. Could maybe sign for like a year, come in, do a job, and then leave. That's pretty much all I have to say about him. And that's going to do it, guys. Thank you all for watching. I know it was a bit of a shorter one, but I just wanted to get this out kind of quickly, give you some quick thoughts about where I think the Blackhawks are going to be targeting players in free agency. If you liked the video, then leave a like, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter, and as always, have a good day. Thank you so much for watching once again, and bye-bye.